What's up, Giants fans, Hub watchers, YouTube subscribers, Twitter and Instagram followers? It's Noname back at again with another Giants update video. And today's one, we'll be talking about the little press conference the Giants had today with the three coordinators of the team: special teams coordinator Thomas McGahee, defensive coordinator Patrick Graham, and offensive coordinator Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett one specifically, a lot of people, including myself, have been excited for because this was his first time since joining the Giants organization in 2020 that he would have spoken to the media. You know, they got a couple questions in and whatnot, and in fact, I'm gonna go over his first just because his was the one I was most excited about. Now, the one I liked the most was probably Patrick Graham, because I think that was the first time I ever saw Graham smile. I got a chance to catch it live, the audio, or hear him laugh, I should say. The Giants were live streaming the audio of the press conference on their website. I actually tweeted it out so a couple of you guys could tune in as well. And I think my favorite one overall is probably Graham, but we'll get to Graham when we get to Graham. Let's start off with Jason Garrett. And the first thing I want to say is Jason Garrett's kind of head coaching side popped out a little bit whenever he needed to say to the media, he needed to be confident and say, I'm not going to talk about Dallas. He acknowledged the time in Dallas. He acknowledged that they had some good, even great teams over there. Acknowledged that he had a great run in Dallas as the head coach and whatnot. Let it be known that he respects the Cowboy organization and the Cowboys team. And from the very beginning, when he walked in, he said, I'm not really going to be answering questions about the Dallas Cowboys and my time as a head coach there. I'm here to answer questions about, basically the New York Giants 2020 season and being the offensive coordinator over here. And there was only a couple of times where he kind of reinstated himself. I wouldn't say he was aggressive, but definitely the mentality and the way he carried himself with those particular questions, which, by the way, weren't even really asking about him in Dallas. So one of them, for example, was talking about his adjustment from head coach to offensive coordinator again, and he kind of went back into head coaching mode, at least with dealing with press conferences and whatnot. And he stated again, yeah, I'm not here to talk about that. He's like, I'm here to learn. I'm here with Joe Judge. We're doing our thing. We're just trying to install the offense and learn it and all that. So that definitely popped out a couple of times, and that was probably the thing I would remember the most from this press conference. Like, Garrett definitely, he wasn't aggressive, and this isn't a bad thing. He kind of was on guard a little bit, and he definitely just wants to stay focused on the Giants, which is something I can appreciate. And speaking of the offense, he talked about how when somebody asked what would it look like, Garrett kind of said that they're not even too sure yet. It's going to evolve, and it's been evolving for a long time. It's something that's been around for a while. And I can't pull up an exact quote as in, what he said. What I have here is from Dan Salomon. I probably should have taken notes of his quotes when I was listening live, but to be honest, you're just so into it that you just want to sit there, listen, and take it all in. But this is what Salomon basically summarized. He said, Garrett says they will certainly have a system that's been around for a long time, but it evolves. The one thing is that they want to attack defenses in different ways. He also said, kind of going back to what I was saying, they're trying to just install the offense and teach it to the players. The one thing they emphasize with the players is that they're always evaluated on the field, in video conferences, in person, etc. And to these two things right here, what it tells me is that what Joe Judge has been preaching since day one is trickling down to everybody. And going back to, like I said, Garrett frequently referenced the fact that he's learning from Judge as much as Judge is learning from him. Even at one point, he was talking about how he has his notebook out at all times to, take notes and whatnot, which is great to see. It's great to see that it's not just lip service from Joe Judge, and it's not just lip service from these coaches. Because if it was just lip service from these coaches, they wouldn't say things like they're actually learning from him. They would just say things like, he's a good coach. He's a great coach. He's going to be good as a head coach. I definitely have the feeling that Garrett is, he's learning new things and whatnot. And once again, that's the message that's being trickled down. Joe Judge in his press conference last week talked about how if there's one thing they want to come out of the training camp with this offseason with, it's learning the identification and communications of the schemes. And that's one thing that Garrett is 100%, expressing here. That's going to be the important thing for these players, from Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, all the way down to the last wide receiver on the roster. What they got to get down is the system itself, no matter how complex it may be or how easy it may be. And they're always being evaluated. They're always being looked at by the coaches. And this is something expressed by Graham as well in his press conference. Whoever you see out there on the field, game day starting, they earn that position because of the fact that they're constantly evaluated. They can mess up and the coaches would know. They're always being looked at how they, how to behave and how to carry themselves over a 1-inch little box on a Zoom call versus how they do it in person and all that. Of course, Garrett also talked about what everybody thinks is going to be the star of the offense, the man himself, Saquon Barkley. He said that we had to try and tackle him in Dallas, and all of our energy was put into that. The question, if I remember correctly, was forgot the report that asked it, but they were basically like, they remember the fact that Jason Garrett referenced last year, I think it was week 1, the season opener against the Giants. Garrett mentioned that they cannot let Saquon Barkley beat them. He obviously knew, I think any coach knows what a great running back he is, and the question was just like, what is it like to be coaching Saquon? And I feel like Garrett held back himself a little bit here because of the statement he made earlier that he doesn't want to talk about Dallas and whatnot. It's inevitable that if he were to give his full true feelings about how he feels about coaching Saquon and whatnot, that the comparisons to coaching Zeke would come up, and the comparisons between them two as players would come up, as running backs would come up. So I feel like he did not give us the full answer and his full true feelings about it, but he did, praise Saquon. He's talking about a first-class person. He praised the way that he prepares himself in and out of the meetings, physically, mentally, and all that, and I'm sure he's going to praise him during the season when Saquon's getting ready for games and whatnot. But it's just a tad bit disappointing that we couldn't get a little bit more out of him. I firmly believe that if he allowed himself to talk about the Cowboys a little bit, and this is definitely something that he made his decision, that he didn't want to reference the Cowboys too much, I think we probably could have gotten a little bit more out of him. And speaking of players that he was talking about, one of the very first players he was asked about was Daniel Jones, and this is his impressions on DJ. He said, playing as a rookie in the NFL is a challenge. Playing quarterback as a rookie quarterback is a real challenge. There is no question he is a football guy. And between those three little dots there, between the ellipses, he basically talked about what he said about Saquon later on in the interview. He talked about the way Daniel Jones prepares himself in and out of the meeting. He talked about the way that he's organized, the way he carries himself, the way he's asking questions, the way he's always working on himself to get better. Jason Garrett referenced all of that. He said, the thing you just like so much about Daniel is his approach. He's a ball guy. He works very hard at it. That's what you get most excited about. Now, for some of us, him saying he's a ball guy, he's a football guy, will be like, well, yeah. No doubt, my guy. He's a starting quarterback in the NFL. Like, of course he's a football guy. But what he means by that, I guess, in more football terms, as weird as this sounds, is that he's obsessed about the game of football. He's obsessed about getting his team to do as best as they can and getting himself to do as best as he can. That's kind of how I took. I'm a bit surprised he didn't really mention what we heard in the offseason. That was DJ constantly calling him up and, bugging him, picking his brain about the ins and outs of improving as a quarterback. In fact, one of the reporters did ask, what is his relationship like with DJ and what are they doing to help improve his fumbling issues and whatnot, which then led into the O-line a little bit, which I'll get to right after this. But he didn't really elaborate too much on that. He's not giving us too much information. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Maybe he's doing that on purpose. Maybe he doesn't want to give us too much information, because that would be the same thing as giving the competition too much information about the stuff that they're doing here in training camp. I think we'd all be fools not to think that Dallas is definitely having like an extra eye on the Giants this year because they have their former head coach here. But 100%, despite the little things that he gave us, you could tell that the guy really likes Daniel Jones, and you could tell that they're going to have a good relationship. The praise is not just lip service, in my opinion. I think Jason Garrett and Daniel Jones are going to do some good things. And then with the offensive line, they talked a little bit about Mark Colombo and, of course, the versatility of the offensive line. I think this was like kind of a direct, kind of question to Nick Gates and Shane Lemieux, maybe even Matt Pert a little bit, talking about guys that are lean and versatile on the offensive line. And the question was asking, why did they draft guys like this, or do they think they're going to need guys like this? Now, the quote that the Giants have up on their website isn't really indicative of what Garrett said. Garrett basically said the reason they brought in guys like that is because they're going to need guys to do a lot of things. They're going to need players on that offensive line that can shift around and that can do different things. They're going to need offensive linemen that can play with just more than one spot. Now, exactly why they need this type of offensive lineman, the more versatile and lean ones, I'm not sure. As far as I'm concerned, in Dallas, yeah, they have probably a couple of guys that could play at guard and tackle, or maybe at guard and center, but it's not across the board. And of course, I'm using Dallas for obvious reasons and because they're one of the best offensive lines as well. But maybe they specifically targeted guys like that in this offseason because they needed to supplement the depth in some way. Maybe there's not too many quality players to have at depth, so they're going to kind of supplement that with the less, in terms of quantity, the lesser players that they have that could play multiple positions. For example, Nick Gates, he'll be depth at probably 3 possessions on the offensive line. Shane Lemieux probably depth at 2. Matt Peart 2, maybe even 3 as well, in his rookie year. Maybe that's what they're trying to supplement, or there's some type of weird scheme thing that I don't know about that could be a reason as well. And the final talking point was really about Mark Colombo, and Garrett talked about how the familiarity he had with Colombo, both as one time coaching him for the Dallas Cowboys and then one time working with him as a colleague as Mark Colombo became the coach of the Dallas Cowboys offensive line. He said that definitely had a strong point in Garrett wanting him to be here with the Giants and then wanting to fix and correct this offensive line. And then he said he's just a natural leader. He told him that after he's done pursuing his dreams in the metal band, that they will get into coaching. This was kind of a little fun part here. Apparently, Mark Colombo was in a very, very heavy metal band whose taste was just a little bit too harsh for Jason Garrett. And this is just kind of like, the normal coaching praise. Not really too much to take from here that we don't already know about Mark Colombo. That is being that he's a very relatable guy for the offensive lineman and that he's a pretty damn good coach for the offensive line. And Jason Garrett just giving him a little praise and saying that he definitely had a little hand in bringing Colombo onto the Giants and whatnot. But that's the quotes for Jason Garrett. Let me know what you guys think. I'm not sure if I'm going to do videos on Patrick Graham just yet. I might just go over them in tonight's live stream. Don't forget to tune into that. I kind of shifted the Madden live stream, which usually takes place on Monday, to Tuesday only for this week. And in the beginning, we'll talk a little bit about Patrick Graham and the other guys. Let me know your thoughts down below. I'm out. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. I'll catch y'all in the next one.